I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried saying that I wasn't.
Hello everybody, this is RubiGamingx. Today's video we're going to be discussing the possibility of all villains being included in the upcoming Godzilla x Kong Supernova. Recently, I've been watching a few videos from other creators on TikTok, and there's been a lot of negativity towards SpaceGodzilla really not being the next villain. Now, I want to give my 2 cents into all this thought and the pros and the cons, viewing both sides. Now, number one, the cons and why most people believe it is not SpaceGodzilla. The most brought up debate, people just being negative towards SpaceGodzilla, would be, well, Legendary has made no clues at all for SpaceGodzilla. There's nothing on SpaceGodzilla. Therefore, there's zero possibilities the next villain has to do anything with SpaceGodzilla. Number two, they like to say that, well, Legendary would have to spend a lot of money to acquire the license. Therefore, they're not going to do it because Toho is very special with their monsters. While that is true, Legendary is still a very much big company that can acquire anything if the rights are needed. Number three, they say because it makes no sense up until this point, there hasn't been any clues or anything that SpaceGodzilla is coming. Therefore, Toho wouldn't allow this to happen because there's no story established from the past. And let me tell you why this is very, very incorrect and why a lot of people just don't see this with an open mind like I do and many of us currently are. Let me tell you why it's not necessary to have a background story established or anything that has to match the original Toho storyline. Number one, up until this point and the previous movies, think about Scar King. There was never any mention of a villain that could resemble something like Kong. And all of a sudden, this villain got revealed within his own movie, within that universe. So, for people that are saying, okay, well, it cannot be SpaceGodzilla because there hasn't been any clues, there's nothing on SpaceGodzilla, Toho wouldn't allow it because it doesn't align with the original storyline with Biollante dying and then, his, you could say, essence going to space because of Mothra and blah, blah, blah. That doesn't matter because Scar King was never established as well and it happened within its own movie. So same thing can apply here for SpaceGodzilla. Legendary, Warner Brothers, they can make the storyline happen within that next film. It's not necessary to follow what Toho has done in the past. Now, another example for people that just don't want to buy into it being SpaceGodzilla is look at the original Burning Godzilla from Toho. We very much know that the original Burning Godzilla was created very differently from how Legendary did it. Now, do you see what I'm trying to say? Both stories are completely different, yet they were possible through their own original storylines, and they don't necessarily have to follow what Toho has done in the past. Look at what Legendary has done with Burning Godzilla. It happened through a nuclear explosion and Mothra and stuff like that. It was very, very much different from the original Burning Godzilla. Yet, a lot of people on TikTok, I've seen a few creators, which I'm not going to name, like to just repeatedly shut down any creative ideas from other people and say, no, it cannot be SpaceGodzilla because it's not like the original Toho movie. Toho wouldn't allow this. Well, I just debunked all of your, answers or all of your debates right there. You saying that it's not possible because it doesn't have to necessarily follow a certain storyline, as I've mentioned already. And those two villains or two, monsters within the Monsterverse are the perfect example that Legendary does not need to follow any of the original storyline. Burning Godzilla is one. Scar King is another. People have to come into this with an open mind and accept that it's not going to be exactly like the original Toho films. And Legendary, Warner Brothers, they can very much change any character's origin, as long as they have a story written down for it, as long as it's creative and powerful and there's reason within that film, it's gonna happen. And for people saying, oh, Toho, it's not gonna approve it, Toho has approved multiple things that Legendary has done in the past. Look at King of the Monsters. Look at Godzilla 2014. Just look at the whole storyline. It's been very much different, creative, and yet Toho has approved everything, you know? And Legendary can very much create Space Godzilla, Gigan, Orga, King Ghidorah, or other villains. It can even be an original villain. And for people saying there's no clues, there's been lots of clues for something coming from outer space, especially for Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire. We've seen a lot of, Easter eggs with, that cartoon Godzilla, and then there's a UFO, there's hints to Pacific Rim, the crystals from Hollow Earth. There's very much something out there in space. Now, I'm not necessarily saying it could be Space Godzilla, but something definitely related to space. And more than that, I think the title itself just makes it very clear. I think sometimes, as a fandom, it is very true, but it's very fun at the same time. We just dig so much into it. And I understand, there's going to be both sides that are going to deny it's Space Godzilla Gigan, or just deny a certain character because they want their favorite character to appear. Now, this specific person was very much just, doubting that it's Space Godzilla and would much prefer it to be Gigan. And while Gigan does make a little bit more sense, there's still very much possibilities for anything to happen. And it doesn't necessarily have to involve Biolante, because this content creator was saying, well, I'll shut everybody's, creative ideas down or their theories because, number one, Biolante was never a thing. Well, let me tell you something, my friend. Biolante doesn't have to be a thing, as I've already proven it in this video by giving my 2 senses and points that Legendary does not have to follow what Toho has done in the past. I'm sure they will do it their own way. And let's not forget that humans within the monsterverse have so much technology. They're capable of creating things we never thought would be possible. For example, look at Mechagodzilla. Look at all of the Jaegers they sort of created within the comic books and all of the technology they have. Don't forget there's Monarch, and clearly they're building up something. They have the Muto head down there. They have multiple skulls from King Ghidorah. They have multiple bodies from Skullcrawlers. They have multiple monsters to pull out so much technology and infuse that into creating so much, or just energy. We never know. For all we know, Monarch or Apex could be the reason why they create Space Godzilla. Perhaps through doing multiple testings, Apex or Monarch, they open a black hole and they infuse Godzilla's DNA with other creatures, therefore creating Space Godzilla. I have no doubt that certainly within the monsterverse, any of this is possible. I really do believe it. It's only a matter of how, when, and how all this is going to come into play for the future film and the future monsterverse movies. So certainly I do believe any of those are possible. Now, for them saying that, Toho wouldn't allow this, like I mentioned, they can very much buy a single monster. I don't think it has to evolve multiple monsters like Godzilla King of the Monsters. If it's going to be just a single villain, it could either be Orga, Gigan, Space Godzilla, or others. They can very much acquire the license and create an original storyline, not necessarily following what the events of the Toho movies did in the past. They might take inspiration and certainly create their own storyline. So for everybody just being so negative about Space Godzilla or Gigan, or just fighting over because you want your preferred monster, it's ridiculous, honestly. Like, there's just been so much established in this monsterverse film that A lot of people seem to forget that humans and just anything is possible. Look at Godzilla King of the Monsters. We never thought that would be a reality, and it certainly did become a reality. And a lot of people, I don't know, just get so much into that, negativity or just into their thoughts that they like to shut down any creative ideas, and they like to believe, well, it's not possible because Toho wouldn't allow it. Again, it's just going back to the same thing, and I don't see much debate there because, like I've mentioned, and I gave my thoughts on it already, I do believe it's possible. And if it's not created like the original Toho, who cares? As long as it makes sense within this, universe, it's perfect. I mean, for Scar King, he was supposed to be the big bad and whatsoever. And, for me personally, he was the weakest villain ever. A lot of people like to hype him out for being intelligent, but uh, there's so much to be desired there. He's an okay villain, but Scar King and Burning Godzilla would mainly be the perfect example that Legendary does not have to follow anything from the past. And I do believe that for me personally, if I had to choose somebody, it's definitely SpaceGodzilla, but I do see other possibilities for other monsters, as I've already mentioned. Now, in the comments down below, let me hear your honest thoughts. Let me hear the positives and the negatives as to why you think it's a possibility and why you believe it's not a possibility in your senses. And may I remind you that Legendary doesn't necessarily need that specific monster for their story. Another great point would have to be Mothra. Initially, she was not going to be in Godzilla X Kong The New Empire. They had a different replacement. They've made an original character that was supposed to resemble an angelic creature, something similar to Mothra, but eventually they got the rights to Mothra and everything was settled. And I wouldn't also be surprised if the next villain was inspired through multiple Toho monsters to be an original monster of their own, because lately they've done it. They've done it with Scar, Shimo, and multiple monsters that we saw within that universe. And let's not forget that they have experience with Hollow Earth monsters, the comic books. There's so much lore and so much things that they can do. Toho is not really necessary, but they always have a backup with Toho when they want to bring in big money. A big name like SpaceGodzilla Destroyer, Gigan, Orga, King Ghidorah, any of those monsters could very much bring a lot of hype when it's done correctly, which I'm sure it will be done correctly within their own universe. And another debate that I see is a lot of people saying, well, I would be so disappointed if it's SpaceGodzilla. I feel it's too soon. Let's not forget that the Monsterverse has been going for over 10 years. It's not too soon. I certainly think it's more than ready to happen already. There's been multiple films established already. A lot of people, a lot of kids, teenagers grew watching Godzilla 2014 and now are currently adults. So that debate also pretty much falls. It's not very early. It's not any of that. It's just that people are not ready to accept reality and face that, this could very much be a reality come into play very soon. And it's the fact that a lot of people think, well, it should be safe as the final boss. It should be safe for the final film. The Monsterverse is very much healthy. They can continue this for many, many, many years. As long as it's successful, the Monsterverse will continue. And let's not forget, there's room for Destroyer. There's room for so many monsters, so many original monsters. So don't be afraid. You just have to trust the process. And so far, Legendary, Warner Brothers, they haven't failed most of the fandom. I think they've done a decent job making the franchise very successful, living up to the hype, especially for Toho. Because if that was the case, believe me, Toho would have revoked the license and everything from this company like they did with Godzilla 1998, as we know as Zilla, but it is officially known as Godzilla. Anyways, they're very much happy, and they said it themselves, even so much that Toho has been inspired to continue and make their own universe with this upcoming Godzilla Minus One, the sequel, and what have you. So clearly, right now, both companies are very happy with each other. And more than anything, Godzilla has been more successful than ever before. Look at Godzilla Minus One. It won a few Oscars, an award, should I say. And it's been one of the most beloved films of all time. Godzilla X Kong made a lot of money. So, I mean, it's just our mindset. It's the mindset of being so negative and just being so arrogant that you don't want to believe that certain things can become a reality. And for me, all of those excuses, because they are just poor excuses without no valid points, are not executed correctly for me. I mean, they fall very easily. Would I debate with people like this on live? Probably not, because my schedule right now is currently very busy. I've been doing a lot of projects behind the scenes, but if I had an opportunity, I think I would like to, given that everybody has the opportunity to have their own notes written down and stuff like that. But at the moment, it would be a big no, even if I wanted to. Second of all, it would have to be a peaceful talk, without any hate or anything like that, because things can get off topic, and eventually what ends up happening during lives, from what I've seen from other people, is, the debate becomes just nonsense with people just arguing, fighting, and sending toxic messages, their fandom against your fandom. And that's not an environment that I would definitely want to be included. I've learned my lessons from the past not to involve myself into personal businesses or problems from other people if they're not going to be mature. I've matured myself enough to realize that and other things. So for the moment, it does have to be with somebody that's going to come in with an open mind, somebody that's chill, and just with any of what I've mentioned. But anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy my thoughts and what I said, let me know in the comments down below. By you agreeing with me or disagree with me, also don't forget to like the video and share it around so this can be exposed to many people, and that just helps me out overall. Thank you guys so much for all the support here on my page and on YouTube and elsewhere. I'll catch you guys next time.